A lot of people think that once you hit $100,000, your money suddenly starts working so hard you can quit your job and sip mojitos on a beach every month. But the reality of what that $100K actually pays you might shock you. Let's start with the uncomfortable truth. $100,000 is a lot of money, but it is not never work again money. It is your life just got a bit easier money. And whether that $100,000 pays you $200 a month or $800 a month or more depends entirely on one boring word that YouTube thumbnails usually hide: yield. Different assets pay very different amounts for the same $100,000, and every extra percent of return is a trade-off between comfort and risk. So instead of promising fantasy numbers, this video is going to walk through what $100,000 actually throws off in cash each month across real common options. Not theory, not clickbait. Imagine you have the full $100,000 wired into your account right now. No debt, no strings, just a clean slate. The first thing most people think of is totally safe, something like a high-yield savings account or a money market fund. In many countries today, those might pay you around 4 to 5% per year. Sounds decent, right? Until you do the math. At 4%, $100,000 gives you $4,000 a year. That's about $333 per month. At 5%, that's $5,000 per year, roughly $416 a month. That's your almost zero risk, very boring number, $300 to $400 every month before tax. For some people, that's a utility bill and groceries. For others, it's just a nice cushion that means you don't panic if your car suddenly needs repairs. Now zoom out and really picture that. Would you actually quit your job, move out of the city, and trust your entire life to $350 a month? Probably not. That's my emergency fund grows a bit while I sleep money, not I tell my boss to shove it money. And remember that $350 isn't guaranteed forever. If rates drop from 5% to 2%, your freedom paycheck just got sliced in half without you doing anything wrong. This is why blindly chasing the I live off passive income dream with a single $100,000 is dangerous. If you don't understand how fragile that number is, you'll either be disappointed and give up or start gambling on sketchy stuff just to make the math look prettier on paper. And here's the sneaky part. Once you've tasted that $300 to $400 a month, your brain starts doing something funny. It goes, wait, if $100K gives me this much, what if I just found a way to double or triple the yield? That's when the YouTube algorithm starts serving you videos with titles like This One, Stock Pays 15% Forever, or My Secret 20% Passive Income Strategy. It sounds like the shortcut you've been missing, but it's usually the doorway into stuff that can blow up your capital while you're busy celebrating the income. Think of it like this. If someone walked up to you in real life and said, hey, give me $100,000 and I'll pay you $2,000 every month forever, no risk, you'd laugh and walk away. But when the same promise is packaged in a polished video or a colorful app with a projected yield graph, suddenly it feels believable. That's the trap. You stop asking, when is this sustainable, and start asking, how quickly can I get in? So instead of getting jealous of the phrase, I live off my passive income, flip the question. Ask, what kind of lifestyle would actually match what my number can safely produce? For $100,000, that might mean your passive income covers your utilities, your groceries, or your rent in a smaller town, not your entire existence. Once you accept that, your strategy becomes saner. You stop chasing magic yields and start using that steady, boring cash flow as a safety net while you build the rest of your life with active income and skills you actually control. But let's say you're willing to step out of the savings account comfort zone into dividend-paying stocks or ETFs. This is where a lot of passive income YouTubers park their money. A broad dividend ETF might yield around 2 to 3%, while higher yield funds or individual dividend stocks might sit in the 4 to 6% range. Now the math changes a bit. At 3%, $100K pays $3,000 a year, $250 a month. At 5%, it's $5,000 a year, about that same $416 a month you saw with high-yield savings at the upper end. At 6%, you're looking at $6,000 a year or $500 a month. The key difference is that dividend stocks and ETFs come with price volatility. Your income might be relatively stable, but the value of your $100,000 is going to move up and down daily. Here's where people get trapped by screenshots. Someone shows a portfolio earning 7 or 8% in dividends and you think, "Oh, so $100,000 can easily give me $700 or $800 a month." In some high-yield cases, yes, on paper. But high yield in the stock market usually means higher risk. Companies or funds paying that much are often in sectors like real estate, energy, or business development, which can cut payouts when times get tough. The more you squeeze out of that $100,000 in the short term, the more you accept the possibility of cuts, volatility, and even permanent loss. So if you chase 8 to 10% yields aggressively, sure, you might in some years get $800 or more a month, but you're now in the "this could break" zone, not the "I can sleep and never think about it" zone. Real estate is where the dream really kicks in for a lot of people. I'll take the $100K, use it as a down payment, and let tenants pay me rent while I chill. It sounds amazing, and sometimes it is. But again, let's do the math. Suppose you use the $100K as, say, a 25% down payment on a $400K rental property. After mortgage payments, taxes, maintenance, insurance, vacancies, and property management, a realistic net cash flow might be somewhere in the 3 to 6% range on your actual invested capital. That means on $100,000, maybe $3,000 to $6,000 a year, or $250 to $500 a month. Could you do better? Sure, with great deals, sweat equity, or taking on more risk. Could you do worse? Absolutely. One bad vacancy, a big repair, or a bad tenant can wipe out months of passive income in one shot. Here's the not-so-passive twist. The more you actively manage the property, the more work you do, the higher your potential return. But then it's no longer passive, right? If you're fixing taps, chasing rent, and dealing with calls at 2 a.m., that's a side hustle, not pure passive income. If you hire a property manager so you never have to talk to tenants, your income drops. So yes, real estate can turn $100,000 into maybe $300 to $700 a month in many realistic scenarios, but it's not a magic machine. It's a business with all the headaches that come with it. Now, what if you get almost completely hands-off with real estate and use REITs, real estate investment trusts, instead? Many REITs yield between 4 and 6%, sometimes more if they're beaten down. The math here is similar to dividend stocks. At 4%, that's $4,000 a year or about $333 a month from your $100,000. At 6%, $6,000 a year or $500 a month. The trade-off is that while your income might be monthly, the stock price can swing. In a good year, your capital grows and your yield on cost looks amazing. In a bad year, you're staring at a red portfolio and wondering if that $500 a month is worth the extra stress. So across safe cash products, dividend stocks, and real estate, in the real world, not in fantasy land, most people with $100,000 invested are realistically looking at somewhere between $250 and maybe $700 a month in passive income, depending on how much risk they're willing to take and how consistent they want that cash flow to be. That's the honest band. It's not zero. It's not, "I retired at 30. It's, "this helps a lot, but it doesn't carry your entire life." And here's where psychology kicks in. If you go into this thinking $100,000 will instantly free you, you're going to feel disappointed and probably chase higher and higher yield, which often leads to bad decisions. Scammy passive income platforms, sketchy high-yield bonds, or ultra-risky crypto schemes promising 15 to 20% sustainably. That's where people get burned. On the other hand, if you see $100,000 as your starting engine, a base that can cover some expenses while you keep building skills and income, you're much more likely to make rational choices. Let's flip the script for a second. Instead of asking, "How much can $100,000 pay me every month?" ask, "What changes if I let that $100,000 grow?" If you reinvest your dividends or interest instead of taking them out, that same $100,000 doesn't just sit still. Over time, compounding makes your future passive income much bigger than what you see today. That's the part no one includes in a short reel. The reality that turning on passive income too early can slow down your long-term freedom. Withdrawing $300 or $400 a month forever from $100,000 might feel good now, but letting it grow to $200,000, $300,000, or $500,000 completely changes the game later, because here's the brutal math. If you genuinely want to live entirely off passive income, $100K is rarely the destination. It's a checkpoint. If you spend $3,000 a month, that's $36,000 a year. At 4%, that would require $900,000 invested. At 5%, $720,000. At 6%, roughly $600,000. Suddenly, you see why people talk so much about your first $100,000 not as the finish line, but as the hardest, most important milestone. Once you hit it, things compound faster, but you're still a long way from total financial independence. So what does all this mean in day-to-day life? It means if you've saved or invested $100,000, you should absolutely be proud. That's a serious achievement. But it also means you should be honest about what it can and can't do. It can cover rent in some cities, it can pay your car loan, health insurance, groceries, or a child's school fees. It can give you the courage to leave a toxic job because you know at least some expenses are covered each month. What it cannot reliably do for most people is replace a full-time salary at anything close to an average lifestyle. Here's the mindset shift that separates the financially free from the permanently disappointed. Treat $100,000 not as your exit ticket, but as leverage. You can use the small passive income it produces to reduce pressure, to buy time to build active income streams you actually control, like a small business, a skill-based side hustle, or a career move that pays more and lets you invest faster. Instead of obsessing over squeezing every last drop of yield out of that $100,000, focus on growing both sides. A sensible, diversified passive base plus an active path to keep adding more capital. Because in the end, passive income isn't magic money that falls from the sky. It's just your past self paying your present self. If your past self only had $100,000 to work with, your present self will get a few $100s a month. If your past self spent years building skills, increasing income, and investing consistently, your future self might be the one who really gets to say, "I live off my portfolio." So the real question isn't, how do I make $100K pay me $2,000 a month? The real question is, am I willing to use that first $100K as a foundation, not a finish line, to build a life where my passive income genuinely gives me choices? If the answer is yes, then those $300, $400, or $500 a month aren't disappointing at all. They're proof that your money has started working for you, and an invitation to keep going until the numbers finally match the lifestyle you actually want. If this video gave you a real reality check on passive income and what $100,000 actually pays you, don't just click away and forget it. Use it. Take 10 seconds right now to pause, look at your own number, and ask, what is my $100K or my $10K or $5K actually doing for me? If you want help turning that into a clear, realistic plan instead of chasing hype, hit subscribe and stay with this channel. Like this video so YouTube shows it to more people who need the same wake-up call, and drop a comment with your current goal number. Let's build smarter passive income, not fantasies.